thanks for tuning in. You are currently listening to Everything and the Gym podcast, and today I sat down with Brandon Smith, the owner of Training from the Ground Up, and we discuss lots of science between fitness, and we also talk about the mental correlation between fitness and working out and what all life has to offer once you open that door. So, thanks for listening, and we hope you enjoy. Thanks to our sponsor, Maximus Nutrition. Are you ready to elevate your workout or exercise performances? Hop on over to their two locations. There is one on Sunset Drive. The other is over on Knickerbocker for all of your top tier supplement and protein needs. Hello. Welcome back to Everything and the Gym. I'm your host, Shelby, and today we have one of our deck of cards sponsors with me. But before I tell you who I have with me, we have to shout out those sponsors. So thank you to Training from the Ground Up, Orange Theory Fitness, and Maximus Nutrition. Make sure you hop over and go get a smoothie. Now, who are you?
I'm Brandon. I own Training from the Ground Up.
Yes. And how old are you?
I just turned 40.
How does it feel to be 40?
Better than my 20s did.
Yeah.
In all truth, yeah. I was in not great shape physically in terms of like injuries and such. So, yeah.
Yeah.
And I had some health things pop up. So, yeah, honestly, like better than ever.
Would you say that you are in the best shape of your life today at 40?
Yes. There are things that are different. Like I have to do more cardio and make sure that's, healthy and really double down on stretching and stuff. But honestly, yeah.
Yeah.
I feel better than I've ever felt. So I'm pretty proud's not the word. I'm very satisfied with what I've been doing.
Yeah. Do you believe that you can carry that on into your 50s and 60s?
Yeah. I mean, there are things that are obviously going to go backwards in some regard or stay the same for a while. There's really no such thing as like staying the same. You're either moving forward or backwards slowly. But a lot of that, yeah, for sure. I have clients, most of my clients are in their 50s and 60s. I've had them as old as mid 90s. And my oldest was my grandfather. And he honestly kept getting stronger until about 93, 94. Mm-hmm. He's 100 now.
Wow.
So he doesn't work out right now, though.
Yeah. That's a rare age to hit for like common human. So yeah. It's impressive that he could make it there.
Yeah, good gene pool. I'm lucky to come from good stock.
Is that your goal? Do you want to make it to 100?
Oh, at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so cool. Okay, so let's rewind the timeline just a little bit. Did you play sports when you were growing up?
Very poorly.
Very poorly.
I was the guy that would do a layup off, like if I'm laying up, I'm right-handed, I would lay up off the right leg, which is absolutely, it's not good. You know, that's not what a good athlete would do.
Yeah.
So yeah, I got hurt a lot. I was broken ankle, asthma, not broken ankle, sprained ankle, asthma, and just all around bad athletes.
Yeah.
But I did like off season.
Yeah. Okay, so what sports, did any of the sports you played, did they kind of put fitness into a thing that you knew that was going to be a part of your life?
To some degree. Someone said that girls liked biceps and I was 16.
Yeah.
So I did nothing but curls. And it looked really funny because it looked like a stick with a potato on it when I flexed. It looked pretty goofy. But I really enjoyed off season because they took us to the weight room. Yeah. And, I was really weak, but I really enjoyed just lifting. Mm-hmm. Wasn't good at it. Got hurt a lot, Yeah. Tore both rotator cuffs twice before I was, I think at least once before I graduated and once more before I was 20. So yeah. I wouldn't say that I learned good habits early on, but it did instill a love for that aspect of it. I love the strength and conditioning aspect. I could care less about sports. I don't watch football. I don't. I don't mind if I'm playing them. And if I have an athlete playing, then absolutely I'm into it, but there's investment there.
Yeah.
When I graduated, I volunteered to be the strength and conditioning coach for my high school football team. And that was like, oh yeah, this is what I want to do.
Yeah. So did you have to do anything specific to become a strength and conditioning coach?
I mean, generally it's a lot of work,
Yeah.
you get education. I think the most important part of that education, though, is actually mentorship. You can get the letters after your name, but in my experience, there might be one certification that adequately prepares you to work with real humans in the real world. I've never had to calculate a VO2 max. I've never had to use the Carvenin formula. I've never had to do any of that stuff. Does it provide context for what we're doing? Yeah, and you should still know it, but in terms of application in the trenches, in the real world, you need a mentor.
Yeah.
So that's what I did. I would seek people out who knew more than me, who were where I wanted to be.
Yeah. So strength and conditioning coach, how long did you stay there in that position?
I mean, at the school? For the school. Yeah, no, It was a small school. It was a private school. So did I have to have an education?
Yeah.
No, I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
I didn't get anybody hurt, thank God. But I, I did what I knew at the time, which was make you tired.
Yeah.
So no, for that school, no. Fortunately, standards have risen substantially since then.
So what did that ripple into? Where did your life go after that?
Oh, man. So I started working on a personal training cert while I had other jobs, because I got married at 20 and had a kid at 25. So I kind of I did have some college. I didn't finish college. I have some. And in all truth, when I go back, it will be to finish my music degree. But I worked. Someone had me recount all the jobs I worked the other day, and I've honestly forgotten so many of them that I'm still thinking, oh yeah, that too. I worked at Baskin Robbins. That was my favorite. So I have a funny story about how I got hired there. My mom told me if you bug people enough, they'll eventually hire you. So I went in every day and asked for the manager. And they're like, no, we're not hiring. 3 months, every day after school. Eventually she says, we already hired someone. I said, okay, well, I'll see you tomorrow. I keep coming in. Another week goes by. She's like, fine, we'll hire you. And so she hired me. I loved it. When I was a kid, my grandmother would take me there to get a clown cone, when I was 5.
Yeah.
And so it had this special place for me, which is one of the reasons I wanted to work there. And so I called myself the executive in charge of clown cone production. And I did that 3 times because I loved it so much. I worked at a coffee shop called the Salvation Army Lighthouse. And then I worked at Albertsons. I worked at an explosion-proof camera company. I worked at, where else? DNS, Residential Services, for a couple of years there. That was, it's a group home.
Yeah.
My home, I had 4 boys who were MR, autistic, and a few other issues, rather. And 3 were nonverbal, 1 was verbal. But I loved that too. And you learn a lot. You know, about yourself. You learn a lot about humans, about people. And then I worked while I'm doing this, I am dipping into the personal training certification materials that I ordered a year ago at that point. And it's I want to do this, but I'm kind of doing this.
Yeah.
And I'm a little irresponsible. So I'm also playing a lot of video games, you know?
Yeah.
But after that, I was a debt collector. I collected student loans at DCS. And then after that, I quit to be a full-time musician. And I did that actually for a while. I think a couple of years.
You play instruments. What all instruments do you play?
So what I made my living on was drums. I would play in various bands. I would record. I would teach. Yeah, that's about it. Now I learned piano, or I started, I don't think you ever finish. I started learning piano in my 30s. And so that's kind of become my main thing. But I've played bass. I played bass for a metal band here for a while, and that was a lot of fun. I play guitar. I actually learned that before anything else. I can survive on it if I have to, but I would rather not.
Yeah.
But yeah, drums and piano. I've taken voice lessons. Not a great student, unless I'm at the drums. Very meditative practice with that. But that's about it, I think.
Yeah. Okay, so what comes after musician?
After musician. What came after that? I think that was when I went to work for the school system. So I did that for a few years and then had my son. And, I was musician, and then I started working at Gold's Gym. And that was when I got my cert in 06, my first personal training cert. I was managing the smoothie shop there, and I went ahead and got the certification there and started working part-time as a personal trainer. And that I just never stopped. So I started in 06 with officially personal training. Then I went to work for the school system, and I ran the in-school suspension for Glenn Middle School for 2 years. Again, you learn a lot about behavior and humans, and I was very fortunate. I still was in contact with my psych professor at the time because psychology was it ended up being my favorite class in college, and her specialty was developmental psychology. So I was constantly asking her questions like how to handle things and how best to be effective. And then a behavioral specialist came through and worked with me hands-on as well. So I was just really good timing. It was really lucky. And all of this plays into what I do now because adults are just kids with added unearned, in often cases, confidence. I know what to do. I mean, if you're watching Instagram and you think you know what to do, cool. But you know what I mean? So all of those things that worked on teenagers and worked to be effective in that role work just as much for adults. And so you just kind of learn a lot about human behavior. And you start out training and you read a lot of textbooks and training and nutrition and all the studies. And, I still read the studies for fun. But then you realize that if you want to be effective, it's the psychology.
Yeah.
And that's by far the hardest part. I started learning motivational interviewing, which is it's kind of a method of, I know I'm kind of tangential here, very ADHD, but motivational interviewing is it's like a technique to help people out of ambivalence. Man, I want to lose weight, but I know I need to do this, but, and that's the part where I know what to do, but okay, motivational interviewing is kind of how you help guide someone out of that and make the choice. Right. I'm still bad at it. So now what's cool, I'll use Chat GPT to practice it and role play. And that's actually really useful because it'll be hey, you sucked here. Here's what you should have said instead. Yeah. And that's cool. I need to do more of that.
It's crazy what AI has opened the doors to, in growth alone. Yeah.
Yeah. It's, in terms of the internet came about this has completely changed the landscape. AI is going to do the same thing, on the same scale, if not grander. Yeah. And yes, there are jobs at stake, my own included in some cases, if we're talking about the online stuff. But at the same time, it creates opportunities for new jobs. It's that adaptive mechanism. The survival of the fittest doesn't mean strongest, fastest. It means most adaptable. And so my goal as I continue to age upward is to not be that guy who complains about how it's not like it used to be. Yeah, it's not like it used to be. What do we do about that? Yeah. I work on me so that I can keep up. That's what I do. I can complain or I can do some work.
Yeah. It never ends. We're going to be constantly working on ourselves. Yeah. Change
is the only constant. If it ended, it'd be very boring.
Oh, yeah. If everything stayed the same.
Yeah. No one wants that. Okay. They think they do. They don't.
So you go from working in the school system. What comes after that?
So that was where I was approached to run a boot camp because I was a personal trainer still. And I was even, I'd work with some people on the side. So I was approached to also at this time, even though I was a personal trainer, I was like way overweight. I was like, I'm just shy of 5'11". I was 220 pounds and not in a good way. So I was approached to run this boot camp and I was like, okay, well, I guess I better be healthy then. So I dropped all that weight, got back down to my walking around 200 and started running this boot camp at like, there's the 4:35 a.m. that we were talking about beforehand. Like my earliest clients were, I think 4:30, then 5:30, then 6:30, which overlapped with a 7 o'clock. And those first two were small group personal training clients. So it was like groups of 4. And then the second 2 were just boot camp. So it was anywhere from like 10 to 20. I think the busiest days I probably had 30, 40 people in there all at once. And it was a lot of fun. And I've been pleasantly surprised with how many people have actually signed back up in my gym now 12, 13 years later because they remembered that boot camp.
Yeah.
Granted, we're doing things very differently. I would say even though I was a personal trainer, compared to today, I didn't know what I was doing. So that was the time because I was doing that. I was like, I really need to I need to learn more. Like I want to be effective. If I'm going to do something, can I curse?
Absolutely.
Okay. I don't, I don't half-ass. I full-ass.
Yeah.
Right? So like if I'm going to do something, I'm going to be the best I can at it. So that was when I started seeking out mentors and people to teach me. And I got very fortunate to find someone who first taught me filters, which my filters for if I'm going to take information, I know I'm very tangential.
That's okay.
Are one, like for personal training, you have to have been doing this for 8 years. Or more, because that's about the burnout time is 7-8 years. If you haven't burned out by then, you're probably in it for life. 2, you have to pay your mortgage with it. It can't be something you do on the side. Like this is what pays your bills. This is how you feed your family. And 3, you need to have a large volume of clientele and a low volume of injuries. There's no such thing as zero injury, but your training should statistically show that you have successfully reduced the incidence of injury, outside the gym and inside. So those were kind of and I had this like very lofty, but still now more than ever applicable filter in there of like over 1,000 people. Like I need to see that you've worked with over 1,000 people. And here are the metrics that I'm looking for when I look at your clients. So that led me to shrink my scope down to a few people who I was going to listen to. And fortunately, there ended up being very kind people who are also very helpful. And I asked them questions every day and they would answer and just help me. And they may not realize they mentored me, but they mentored me because I literally would talk to them daily. And then I ended up getting licensing through them later. So it worked out really well. Where did we go? Oh, yeah. I was running the boot camp.
Let me rewind real quick. Do you still have those mentors in your life?
Yeah, I still talk to them on occasion.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anytime I have a question, and I send my coaches to talk to them as well. Yeah. Because they're still smarter than me. They've still been doing it longer than me, They've still seen more people than me. So, yeah, for sure. I wouldn't be where I am without the people who have helped me get here.
Yeah. Are you mentoring anybody?
I mean, I'm called a mentor by some of my coaches. There's one in Houston, Caden. Hi, Caden. I don't know which camera I'm looking at, but he's called me mentor, and making fun of my age, he's also called me dad to make me feel bad for being old. But yeah, he's a really good dude. And I've had a few other people say so, but I don't know. I'm not intentionally going to say, yeah, I'm a mentor and you should listen to me. That feels weird. So if I am, I hope I'm doing a good job.
Okay, so you go boot camp.
Yes.
What's after boot camp?
Boot camp. After that, I'm I quit the school system so I can do it full time. I see that I'm not going to make enough this way. So I go and I look for gyms to just do personal training in. And I trained at Eric Fowler's gym. I don't know if you've met him or talked to him, but he's a personal trainer around town, or at least I don't know where he is today, but super nice guy. He had a gym at the time and he let me train there for a few months. And then I went from there to the Y and I spent a year at the Y just really, I had a family, I had a kid, I had a mortgage, and I had to pay to take care of them.
Yeah.
So my full-time job when I wasn't with clients, I was out marketing. I was in the gym talking to people. And I still kind of have this rule of like, for every hour I'm training on the floor, I'm going to spend 2 hours in continuing education with stuff that's past those filters, right? Not just some random thing, but like, I need to know this works in the real world. So, so from the Y, I spent a year there. It was a really great home. They were really good to me. And man, within the first 3 months, it just kind of, it blew up. I'm fortunate I have some connections in the medical community. My mom's a nurse practitioner, which did give me a bias in how I approach training. Cause I was that kid who would like steal her textbooks and read them for fun. And still do. She's given me several of her old textbooks. But I, had some connections there and was able to reach out and make some more chiropractors, whatnot. And, the thing with referrals is you don't just go asking, you go giving.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you've got this issue. The goal here isn't for me to get clients. The goal here is for me to help people. And if I put that first, the clients will come. If I put get clients first, I'm really putting myself first, and that means A, I'm doing them a disservice, and B, I'm honestly not going to make as much because I'm doing them a disservice. So the win-win is focus on the betterment of the human and really what's best for them. And like, if I can't help that person, let me refer them to someone who can. And that's still my modus operandi, or however you say it.
Yeah.
My MO is like, if I can't help you, let me find someone who can. Let me put you in the best place. And I've referred out to my competition on several occasions. I don't see it as competition. It's, what I do is different from this person. It's a different vibe. It's a different feeling. Anyway, back to the point. So from January, I had like one client, maybe two. That March of that year, I was making more than I'd ever made. I was working more than I'd ever worked, but it was working and I was really loving it. And the thing is, it's not fitness, it's self-actualization, and it hits. The first time someone tells you like, yeah, I was able to pick up my grandkids, I was able to throw the football with my son again, you realize why you're in this. And the why goes from girls like biceps or let me show you how smart I am to let me help you. I'm not giving you anything. Let me help you get the rest of your life back. Those things that you lost hope about, those things that you thought you don't have anymore. Let me help you restore some of that hope and show you that, yeah, you can have it back. Because I came from my own story. Like my back injuries were bad. I had to have someone help me in the bathroom. Like I couldn't go to the bathroom alone at 2 points. And once you get past that, and then you can go and do powerlifting and set personal records for yourself. I never did anything that would impress anybody, but for me, it was huge. That feeling of like, okay, it's not a life sentence. You want to share that with everybody. If you really love people, and I do, you want to give that to people. So anyway, my business grew, and it got to the point that like in order to do a better job, I'm going to have to build something, because logistically this no longer works. I have too many people, and the Y is busy at the times that I'm working. So I built something, and I've been doing it since.
Training from the ground up?
Yes. Yeah. I built it in 2010? No. 14. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay, so 10 years. 10 years.
11 now.
11. Okay, so where did you go? Like, where did training from the ground up begin? Like, where did you start in?
Like my first location?
Yeah.
It was a small little 850 square foot closet on College Hills across the street from Park 2400. And the Bearded Barista, which is an awesome coffee shop. Highly recommend. Yeah, so it started there, and then it moved to Beauregard, where it was briefly Fit You for a time. And then it moved out to Knickerbocker, where it was back to TFGU. And then it moved into the mall. And now it is on Southwest by Hobby Lobby.
Yeah.
In a little corner that honestly is like best location so far. Though I do miss the lake, because being able to look out the window and you're on the bike and you can kind of see some of the water, you're like, that's very different.
Yeah. Why did you name it Training from the Ground Up?
Because the people who I learned from taught me to focus on patterns first. If you train patterns, you'll get muscles. If you train muscles, you can miss patterns. And so like it was kind of born out of this idea of developmental kinesiology, where they like watched babies and the developmental sequence. And there's kind of an ideal developmental sequence. And when a kid skips a step, you can see it later. You know, you'll see things like dyslexia if they skipped, or like if they skip crawling. You know, you'll tend to see things like that. There's a reason we go through these sequences. And so like I got really in the weeds on that stuff, which it ended up like, do I need to major in the minors this much and focus on corrective exercise? Like, no. But the concept and the principle still remains of like, we are going to start from the ground up. So when I have coaches come in, we all train from a system, which means if you're training with me, you'll get pretty much the same thing as if you're training with one of my coaches. So, if this, then that, otherwise this. And that's built off of the concepts and the principles from that ideal. And then, I was really big into Turkish get-ups at the time. And the physical therapists that I learned them from used them and showed a lot of breakouts for, hey, if this issue in the shoulder, if this issue in the hip, low back, you kind of think joint by joint, which is actually a whole article that I would highly recommend anybody read. Just go read. It's an old article at this point, but it's still valid. The principles still apply. Anyway, I would use it, and it can be a very effective tool to address common minor issues. When you're thinking patterns, you're also thinking neurology. You're also thinking, like I always explain it, like you can build a big engine, but if your timing belt is off, you're not going to get out of the driveway. And so it can be one of those timing belt tuners. Like, are the muscles strong? Yes. Are they firing in the right sequence? Because you're thinking microseconds in terms of like timing. And that's where stability really comes from. It's not stiffness. It's reflexive activity, right? So tightening the timing belt, so to speak, to teach stability. Now those muscles will fire better when you go squat.
Yeah.
Right? I don't do hip lifts for glutes. I actually use a kneeling variation, and we use that to kind of teach them to fire within the squat. And then you'll find like, oh, your glutes are just growing without any isolation glute exercises. Like you don't need them. Yeah. Anyway, that's where it came from. Sorry. I rant a lot, so I apologize. It came from that. So training from the ground up, Turkish get up, everything starts from the ground. If you start there, you're going to get all the patterns. And then any weak links you can address. Okay. So
obviously you're still working out. What does like your fitness routine look like for yourself?
It's very close to what it's been the last 12 years, 15 years. 15-ish. In terms of split, in terms of principles, I've learned more principles, especially over the last several years. Like there's been kind of an explosion of like research. Now, the thing with research though, is it's behind. It is by definition behind because it can't study what we're gonna do. It can only study what we're doing. So you have to come in with a mind of, this is another tangent, with a mind of what works in the real world, experience, plus what do we see in the research? The research often explains why something we did worked or didn't work, and it helps us refine our approach further. It does not really give us new approaches. So to provide context now for my own training, it looks a lot like my clients. The only difference, I do it more often. So like my clients do full body period. Very rarely I'll have someone on a split, but they're not generally in my gym in that case. That's an online person who is like really dedicated and wants to spend 6 hours in the gym a week. Most of my clients are busy. They are like, they've got families and jobs and businesses and things to do. So give me 3 hours a week, 2.5. Give me a little bit of time. Okay, I've got to get the most done possible in that amount of time. I cannot afford to have you sit down and wait 3 minutes between sets. We're going to be productive.
Yeah.
For my training, I still follow that guideline, that principle of like, no downtime. Like I'm resting, but while my upper body is resting, maybe I'll do something, whether it be like a stretch on my lower body or an exercise on my lower body. My current split is loosely based off an old off-season program that the people who taught me use. It's a 4-day split, upper lower, really straightforward. So day one, and it's kind of an oblong 8-day cycle. So it'll sometimes have me lifting like on Sundays and whatnot. But it's really like day one is push and like some kind of corrective work. It's like mobility work or core work. So like I'll bench, and in between sets of bench, I'm going to do a side plank for 8 exhales. And while I'm recovering from the side plank, I'm going to do like this yoga stretch for my hips or my lats or something. And I have that all written out in a spreadsheet and track it on my phone. And I have all these formula built in to pick my sets and pick my weights. And I love systems and formulas and spreadsheets. And it's like, I love when I can automate systems. I'm a very systems driven person, because another tangent, I'll try and stay on task. I'm sorry. So yeah, it's like, really, when I look at it, it's 2 exercises. When you look at the sheet, it might look like 10.
Yeah.
Because I'm doing stuff in between those 2 exercises that's productive. So first day, push. Second day, pull with legs. So like deadlift, chin up, single leg squat, dumbbell row, single leg squat, dumbbell row, and then a couple other things at the end. And then third day is so this is where I changed. Last year, I hired a bodybuilding coach from Renaissance Periodization, and I trained with him for like 9 months, and I learned some principles and how to implement them in my own programming. And so I've been implementing them in my programming, and it's worked very well. So there's some isolation stuff in there, which if you're not changing your mind on something, every few years, you haven't learned.
Yeah.
Either that or you were way ahead of your time. And most of us we're not that smart. I'm certainly not. So I've changed my mind on isolation exercises. So I have some. And then day 4 is like that's another thing that I've changed my mind on, zone 2 cardio. I was very anti, and if we're talking fat loss, I'm still anti, but if we're talking health, longevity, mood, very pro.
What is zone 2 cardio?
Keeping your heart rate between 65 and 75% for an extended period of time. What I've seen, what studies I've read, 2 to 4 hours a week in total. So I just tell people like 3 or 4 30-minute sessions a week will get you close enough, and you will notice a physical difference. You will notice a difference in a lot of aspects of your life, places you didn't expect. So, and it does help you recover faster between sets. It does make your workouts more effective. Like, it does not eat into your gains. If anything, it makes room for more, raises the ceiling. Plus you feel better. Yeah. It just sucks to do.
What kind of cardio do you like to do?
Incline treadmill walking. No hands on the rails, because you're not doing it.
Yeah.
But yeah, incline treadmill walking or the assault bike. Occasionally maybe a Stairmaster, but I think the best one really is incline treadmill walking. There's something to be said for practicing the patterns we're built to perform the most frequently. There are always exceptions and outliers. I get a lot of people with Achilles problems, or plantar fasciitis. You make accommodations. That's where the bike comes in. But, the soleus, this muscle down here in your calf, kind of works as a secondary pump, like a heart. It helps pump blood back up. And I think there's something to be said for involving that a bit more, especially in cardio-like activities. That's just me pontificating. I don't have anything to back that. Don't cite me. My experience lends, possibly, yeah. I think there's something to it. I'd be interested to see research. I don't know how it would be conducted. That's not what I do.
Yeah.
But it'd be cool. So yeah, that's my favorite.
Okay, so you have a day for zone 2 cardio. What's after that?
Then I do it again. Upper push, lower with pull, isolation, zone 2 again.
Yeah.
Sometimes that zone 2 is more along the lines of like, I don't feel like doing zone 2, so I will do sprints. I really like, and there is a genetic component to this, but there's also a like epigenetic component to it. So I really like sprints, you know, and most people, I tell them another thing I've changed my mind on. Don't run. Where people go wrong with running is they get the dosage wrong. You know, every mile is 1,500 explosive single leg squats at 2 to 5 times body weight. So that's 750 reps per leg per mile at, for me, over 1,000, up to over 1,000 pounds, like closer to 1,100 pounds.
Yeah.
Running has the highest injury rate of any activity because people get the volume wrong. Mm-hmm. So now I'm like, hey, run a little, you know, run to the end of your driveway, walk back, or run to the end of the block, walk back. Titrate. Start with a small dose and titrate up. So I started out doing pretty much that. I like to use a heart rate monitor because for one, like I want to get my kind of zone 2 range. And yeah, if you go anaerobic, like it is kind of changing it because you get blood pressure spikes up and down. And part of the reason zone 2 is so effective is a constant blood pressure with kind of a pumping action, but whatever, close enough, something better than nothing. And sprints are more effective than more time efficient.
Yeah.
Right. I don't want to say more effective. Like, oh, these people who did I'm tangenting again. These people who did zone 2 for an hour a day, you know, they lost this much weight. These people who did interval training lost the same amount of weight. So it's not more effective, except these people spent like 6 times more time in the gym. So yeah, it is more effective. Like,
yeah. You're
saving time. Can you do it as much? No. So it's not more effective, but it's way more efficient.
Yeah.
For fat loss. For health, you still got to get that zone 2.
Yeah.
So anyway, when I'm not feeling the zone 2 thing, I will run sprints until my heart rate hits about 75%, and then I'll walk to 65. Sprint. It's more of a stride, not a jog, not a sprint, somewhere in the middle, right? 75, 65, 75, 65. That keeps me interested. It does kind of break the rules of zone 2 a little bit. It's close enough. Nothing is all or nothing. Everything is on a spectrum. We're in the spectrum. It's a whole lot better than the nothing that I was planning to do where I sit down and play Xbox for an hour. So.
Okay. So what does health and fitness mean to you now? Why do you keep showing up?
If I'm going to be alive, I'm going to full ass it. I don't want to be limited by what I can't do. Most people, I think everybody doesn't want to be limited. That doesn't mean don't accept limitations when they present themselves. There are things like my powerlifting days are definitely behind me. Yeah. I'm done with that, right? I've got a list of reasons why. Generally, it's like the juice isn't worth the squeeze for me anymore. And bodybuilding's way more fun, especially when you take a functional, I hate the term functional because it's been kind of bastardized, but a functional approach to it. Mm-hmm. But in my mind, it means to bring your best to the table in all aspects. I want to be the smartest I can, so I'm going to work on that. I want to be, and zone 2 helps with that.
Yeah.
I want to be the strongest I can because one day you'll need it. The number of times that I hear like, hey, life is just easier. Like when I picked up the laundry basket, I didn't get winded afterwards. Like it's little things that you don't realize. It's really hard to hurt someone who's brutally strong. And when I say the powerlifting days are behind me, yeah, I don't mean I'm done being strong.
Yeah. I
train to be strong, but with a different range of motion, different technique, because I want this to be more applicable to day-to-day life. Mm-hmm. And I want to look pretty. But my clients, most of them, again, being, you know, in that 50s, 60s, 70s, playing with the grandkids, being able to maintain that, not losing your mind as you age, because again, the science is pretty clear there, like staying active, more importantly, strength training and conditioning, which is why it's strength and conditioning, not strength or conditioning. Mm-hmm. It helps with that a ton, especially again, coming back to the patterns thing, like there is a little bit of research that I'm familiar with. There may be more now because this was 10 years ago that I learned about this with, patterns that cross the midline of the body, kind of playing with the corpus callosum in the brain. And like that showed benefit to people with dyslexia. Cool. So at worst, I'm getting healthier. At best, I might be getting a little bit smarter. Mm-hmm. So for me, it's full-assing it. For me, it's bringing all of my, like, I'm going to bastardize a quote from a Greek philosopher whose name, I don't know, Socrates, I don't remember who it was, but like what a shame it is for a man to never realize his full potential with his body. Like, again, bastardized quote, paraphrased, but you get the point. Like, yeah, you've got all this potential. What a shame would it be to let that go to waste? Mm-hmm. So when I look at somebody, what I see is their potential and what they can do, what they can learn to do, mm-hmm. rather than the limitations behind them, many of them being psychological. And I think having that, the Pygmalion effect is real, which means people grow into your expectations. Mm-hmm. Obviously, again, that's not binary. It's not all or none. It is more spectrumy. But your expectations absolutely have an impact on their outcomes. And my expectations, I've always been an optimist. I try to say realistic optimist, but let's face it, I'm kind of like a hopeless optimist. I see what you can do with 3 years of training.
Yeah.
I think you can do this. Based on my experience, this is what I think you'll be able to do.
Yeah.
And that means everything else is going to be easier for you. And you don't realize how much easier it is when you put your luggage in the overhand bin, and you're not winded, when you have to sprint to catch your plane and you're not like dying and you didn't sprain your ankle on the way and you didn't hurt yourself grabbing your kid out of the street, and you're in a better mood because you're not wiped out. You have more energy. My mom, when I was a kid, she'd have me do chores and I'd say, I'm tired. And she would say, you got to use energy to make energy. And of course, that was like, get your kid to work.
Yeah.
But it's true. It's
it is true.
100% true. Like when I'm tired and I'm like, I'm not feeling it today, I go do my zone 2 or I go do my lift and I feel better. And that's ultimately my goal in my gym is like when people come in, I want them to leave feeling better than they walked in. Mm-hmm. Sometimes maybe not because they're going to be sore and tired, but those are exceptions. Those are people who want that. Mm-hmm. But in their mind, they feel better too because they're in a better mood. They got the workout they wanted to. Yeah. Right. Your question was, what was fitness to me? Yeah. Yeah. Fitness. So really defining fitness depends on the task.
Yeah.
I'm not fit to run a marathon. And a marathon runner is not fit to do powerlifting. Mm-hmm. And, fitness is specific. It's task specific. In my mind, fitness is like I'm 6 weeks out from being somewhat competent at anything.
Yeah.
Not the best unless there's something I'm really interested in, but pretty good, respectable,
Are you training for a bodybuilding show?
I wasn't. And I'm still like my training wouldn't change. It doesn't. Yeah. It really doesn't change the training. It changes the nutrition and it changes your daily schedule because you spend, for me, it's an hour a day practicing posing.
Yeah.
And that's taxing. And I don't love it, but it does keep you focused when you're practicing posing every day. And one of my coaches is getting ready for a show, and it's like I'm thinking about it, and I've been asked so many times now if I am that I'm like, I don't know, I kind of want to now. Yeah. But there's definitely a mindset to it that I need to get through a couple of life hurdles real quick, or not life hurdles, scheduling things so I can make time for the posing and just kind of get my routine. Yeah. Very routine driven. But yeah, I might do one. If I do, it'll either be late this year or early next year. Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. If you do, I'll have you back on to review.
Okay.
Okay, let's hop into nutrition real quick. How many calories a day? Are you tracking macros and all of that sense? What does it take to like fuel your body?
For me personally?
Yeah.
These days I probably run just over 3,000-ish a day. I'm loosely tracking I was starting a cut. Now it's like I'm slowly kind of just recomping. So it's less physiology at the moment and more psychology. Psychology beats physiology every time. You know, here's what I need to do. How do I make myself do it? How many people are there? That's where they are.
Yeah.
That again is the MI motivation interviewing like ambivalence question. So for me personally, I'm rolling probably around 3,000-ish. But I'm not being terribly strict on it. I know I get at least 230 grams of protein a day because I weigh about 225-ish right now, or 224, somewhere in there. 220 to 225.
Yeah.
So I'm getting, you know, a little more protein than I need because I just like to have that buffer. And I'm weird. I like chicken breasts a lot. So that, and then, you know, try to keep the fats. There is a formula.
Yeah.
And if I were being ideal, I would follow it. I like chocolate. So the fats are higher than they need to be for, especially if I was going to prep for a physique show. And the carbs they're running anywhere from 250 to 400 a day right now. So kind of in the moderate range, I would say. If we're trying to gain weight, that goes up. The fats, again, stay the same. They stay at body weight. Really, like, I use body weight as a multiplier. It's a lot. It's a little bit more accurate than like, or it's a bit easier to run, I should say, especially if you want to really tune those macros to like min-max it, right? Yeah. So body weight times 0.3 to 0.4-ish for fat, times 1 for protein, and times 2 for carbs is a pretty decent starting point for someone with my activity level and my genetics and my habits and, you know, all these different factors and my food composition habits and my fiber intake. Like all of these things matter.
Yeah.
You know, it's always multifactorial. There's always nuance. It's always a red flag if someone doesn't have nuance.
Yeah.
And so that's a thing. But sorry, I tangent. That's around maintenance, maybe just shy of it right now. Ish.
Are you taking any kind of supplements or creatine or anything along those lines to help you maintain your body?
Creatine for sure.
Yeah.
I did start TRT in June of last year.
Okay.
My levels weren't like super low. They were like 600, but I had symptoms. I had brain fog. I had fatigue. I wasn't sleeping well. Started TRT, and for the first time in my life, I understood everything my accountant said to me about my taxes.
Oh.
And that's what convinced me to stay on it.
Yeah.
And so, that absolutely provides an advantage. I also happen to have good genetics and respond very well. So yeah, all cards on the table, like that's helping. Not everyone's going to have the same response, but, you know, that has to be taken into account. My level as of last test was like 700, you know, and I respond very well to that. So, I have some genetic advantages in terms of supplements. Creatine's a non-negotiable for everyone. Greens powder, protein, zinc, magnesium, D. I think in terms of supplements, that's it.
Yeah.
I have a blood pressure medication and a couple others that I can't remember, to be honest. I have like a little, the pill scheduler thing.
Oh, yeah.
So,
how many hours of sleep are you sleeping every night?
I'm averaging, according to my Whoop, like 7.5, just shy of 8. Season change, it's been a little bit more restless. So like on the lower end of that, 7 is the bare minimum. I don't train if I get less than 6. I shoot for 9. I'm not very good at getting that. I used to get that. And honestly, that will have the biggest impact on your physique. So like sleep is critical. If I get, you know, on the lower end, I still try to get a nap in the afternoon. There's research again to indicate that that's really important for heart health. You know, I am predisposed to higher blood pressure. I find if I nap in the afternoon, that tends to knock it out. If I don't, it's a little on the higher side. So I try to get it at least 8.
Yeah.
That's one of those things like I lecture about constantly. Like you can tell I'm very ranty and I go off on tangents and I lecture, and sleep is one of the big ones. And highly recommend everybody read Matthew Walker's Why We Sleep. With a caveat, that book had me stress out so much about like, oh, I need to get more sleep that I couldn't sleep. But it also had like, here's what to do to help you sleep when you're stressed out tips. And if you implement them, it absolutely will change your life. So
yeah. All
sorry,
right.
tangent again.
You're good. That's what we're here for. Okay, so is there anything you want to add into this first segment about life, about gym, about fitness, about you?
Everything is multifactorial. There's always nuance. You always have to take the whole human into account. It's always more. There's always more to it. And while everything is more complex than it always seems on the surface, your approach should be simple. Nutrition is wildly complex, enough that it's still actually a pretty young field, but we're pretty certain about what we're doing. If we know what works in terms of body composition changes. Now, there are other things that we're still learning. Hard and fast rules leave room for nuance. But it's wildly complex, but your approach is simple. So I think that's a common pattern that you'll see, a universal principle. And that's something that I'm always looking for, is like, where do I see this pattern elsewhere? You know, wildly complex under the surface, but really simple in approach. Training, nutrition, psychology, life.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
that, I guess.
All right, you guys, we are going to break away so we can hear a word from our sponsors, and we will be back soon. This episode is powered by Maximus Nutrition in San Angelo, Texas. One is located over on Sunset Drive. The other is located on Knickerbocker. If you are serious about your performance, swing by their store for top-notch supplements and other fitness-related enhancements. Head in today and level up your fitness game. And we are back. This deck of cards segment is sponsored by Training from the Ground Up and Orange Theory Fitness. Blue card.
Blue card. If you could teach the world one concept, what would you teach? You want to answer first?
I can answer first if you want. It would be self-love. I feel like oftentimes there are so many people that don't know how to love themselves, and when you can't love yourself, it's very hard to love others for who they show up as. And so just learning how to like dive deep into that and like finding like who you truly are so you can truly value like the person you're becoming.
100%.
Yeah, I feel like the world might be a little more kinder.
Yeah, it's funny. Like I was actually going to say something really similar, compassion, just universally, which always starts with empathy. And I think that requires you to sit with yourself. And I think it requires you to do a lot of mental role play. You know, putting yourself in someone else's shoes. What would that feel like if that were me? There is a really good book by a neuroscientist, and I'm trying to remember his name. I want to say it was like Christopher Koch, but he talks about like if you had the same brain, if you had the same upbringing, if you had the same nervous system, if you had all the same input as this other person, by all rights, you would have done the same thing they did, even though you, as you are, currently disagree with it. And you can't, if your goal is to change someone's mind, you really want to shift that more to understand how they arrived there. And then you can have a conversation that goes two ways. And you can actually be effective as a human. And when I say effective, I don't mean manipulate people. I mean be effective in making the world a better place for that person and for yourself. So, yeah, that has to start with self-compassion. Brene Brown talks about that. You have to take care of the self. You can't serve from an empty cup. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's a great one. Good answer. All right. What was the last book you read and enjoyed?
Ooh. So I have a lot of books in my library. Are we going to count Audible, or does it have to be physical or Kindle?
It can be any kind of way.
Because I have like all three.
Yeah.
And it's, I can name a lot of them off the top of my head, but if I have to name just one, I think the one that really just like hit me was The Prophet, which my fiance had someone recommend it to her. He's a retired psychiatrist, I think, or psychologist, and he was always quoting from it. And so he recommended that book, and I started it, and it's very, very short. And it was like instant. I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah. Because it's very poetic, and it's a lot of wisdom packed into a lot of poetry, which is like, that's the right mix for me.
Yeah.
I love that. And it was just one of those where I'm like,
You said it's called The Prophet?
The Prophet, yeah.
Yeah.
Highly recommend.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm going to have to go look that one up. I was slacking in 2024 on reading, and I am currently rereading through Fourth Wing and Iron Flame. That way I can make it to Onyx Storm, which you and I have talked about.
Yep. Just started Onyx Storm.
Yeah. No spoilers.
Nope.
I have 3 hours left on Iron Flame listening to before I can start Onyx Storm. So.
If you like that, I highly recommend Brandon Sanderson, the Way of Kings, and that series. Disclaimer, it's a slow burn. You got to get that first book is hard to get through the first time.
Yeah.
The second time you love it, every minute of it.
Because you understand
it. But he has a habit of throwing you into a completely developed world and letting you just pick it up as you go and figure out who's what. And it's all weird fantasy names. But I love when there's a book that, especially, fiction. And fiction is actually how we develop empathy best, or one of the best ways to teach and develop empathy is reading fiction, because you're practicing putting yourself in someone else's shoes.
Yeah.
He does a really good job of humanizing all of his characters. I think probably the best I've read about that actually is Joe Abercrombie. The Blade itself is the first book in the series, and I'm trying to remember. First Law is the first trilogy in this whole thing he does, but his character development is phenomenal. It's just, I don't recommend it to everybody because it's also very Game of Thronesy and like the violence and stuff. So if you're into that, it's very gritty, but character development is just top notch from him. But if you like Fourth Wing, Brandon Sanderson is, you really kind of, I won't say you can't go wrong, but he's really good.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, I'll have to check that one out too. Yep. All right. Pink card.
That's me. How do you feel about cardio?
We just shared that one.
Yeah. Pro. I'm pro.
Yeah. Me too. I'm training for a HYROX race right now, and so it is a lot of cardio. And then I teach cardio, so I have to love it.
Fun.
Yeah.
I love it for a living.
Yeah. All right. Well, since we covered that one, we'll go to the next one. What version of you would you like to see in 10 years?
I can say what I want to, like where I want to be logistically, but in terms of version of me, what I would like to see now and what I would have liked to see when I was 30 versus what I am now, like I think what I am now is better than what I wanted to see at 30. So I don't know that today Brandon could speak to that very well, but I would just want to see myself be kinder and more compassionate, be more understanding, be more effective as a human, as a business owner. More locations,
Yeah.
And back in music. I am actually playing again, but more. That's still, I love the fitness game, but I love music the most. That's still my passion, as much as that word is overused.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. I would like to be a good mom. in 10 years, I would still like, my daughter would be 16, which is tricky years. So I would like to be able to maintain some form of a good mother-daughter relationship with her as well as keeping like my family together. And then I would hope that the podcast is still going and we're years down the road and advanced and doing wildly successful. I still want to be fit. I still want to be in the gym with some kind of attainable goal and working out and continuing to grow.
I have a question on that. What would you define as wildly successful?
Wildly successful for the podcast.
Uh-huh.
Oh, I never started this to make money. I never started this to, put myself in the center. I started this to let others know that there are people out there like them and how much health and fitness, like, it really impacts day-to-day life. And so wildly successful for me is that people are actually engaging and interested in what's coming next and who we're having on, and they're taking what we're, like, the stories we're sharing, and they're learning from them. That would be wildly successful. I can't put a number on it. I can't project that.
It's a vibe.
Yeah, it's a vibe.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah. Yeah. So just being able to impact many as a whole. Yeah.
I like it.
Thanks. All right. Green.
Is it me?
Yes.
Do you have a secret talent and can you do it right now? I could do that. Does that count?
Hey, that does count.
A secret talent? I feel like I'm very public with my talents.
No hiding.
Yeah, not a lot to hide there.
Is there a talent that you have that people might find different?
I can juggle. I don't know. I do like the whole this thing a lot with like the nose and the lip and the ears, and you do the pet dance and you do all the dumb things. I don't know that I have any specific talents that would be odd, or I think they're all pretty front and center. Yeah. What about you?
Okay, so I've done this on one other episode, but it's the only like talent that most people don't know about. I know how to make a butt with my tongue.
Okay.
You ready?
Yeah. Yeah. That looks like a butt. Okay. Yeah.
So that's my secret talent.
Another body thing. I don't know.
Just making hand signs.
Yeah, I don't know. That's not a talent. I don't know. I don't have anything. I'm boring.
I'm going to tuck this one in because we have already discussed it. What is one exercise that you avoid?
Burpees.
Burpees.
They're a complete waste of time.
Really?
If you're trying to get your heart rate up, there are 1,000 better ways. If you're trying to train getting up and down, there are 1,000 better ways.
Yeah.
You always think you always have to remember the SAID principle, specific adaptation to imposed demands. So the principle of specificity applies really here, really, well, it always applies. Mm-hmm. And I can't think of a specific thing that burpees train outside of sore wrists, shitty push-ups, half-ass squat jumps. Like, I'm going to train a squat jump. I want you to jump. If I'm training power, I'm training power. Mm-hmm. I've often said strength and conditioning should be kept separate. Strength should be strength, conditioning should be conditioning, and nary the two shall meet, because you get the worst of both worlds. You're too tired from conditioning to actually train maximal strength. You're too you can't get stronger while you're doing conditioning, and your conditioning isn't going to be like, you're not going to do zone 2 from deadlifts. Mm-hmm. If I want to jump higher, I need to make you stronger. I need to train power. If I want to do a better push-up, I need to make you stronger. I need to train power. If I want to make you tired, I have an assault bike for that. Mm-hmm. If I want to train cardio, well, I know the science says zone 2 is this. If we're doing fat loss, okay, I'm going to have you do intervals up to this, recover down to this, and repeat based on your heart rate. Mm-hmm. If we're training for a run, I'm going to time your pace. I'm going to check your heart rate. I'm going to look at your nutrition and do all these things. I just can't think of a place where the burpee improves something better than another tool with a lower orthopedic cost.
Yeah.
But I've seen a lot of orthopedic issues from burpees with very little payoff. So for me, a burpee is a waste of time.
Yeah.
There is that whole, like, there's no such thing as bad exercise. It's just bad applications. I'm like, okay, I don't see an application for the burpee. So that's my very passionate little anti-burpee rant.
As I am training like hundreds of burpees right now.
I can show you a better way to get better at burpees without doing burpees.
Yeah.
By training each segment specifically on its own. And then you'll find that when you go to do burpees, they're way easier. Because I guarantee you, someone with, let's say a lady with a 300-pound squat, not that we're going to put you there, but let's say we take a lady who has a 300-pound squat and a 200-pound bench press and a pretty good vertical and like she does her conditioning. I guarantee that girl can do better burpees than the person who just does burpees and doesn't train strength.
Yeah.
Strength. Here's strength is the bucket in which every other goal fits. The stronger you are, the easier everything else gets. There was a video of, like, I think Eddie Hall doing snatches, for time. And it was like 135, see how many you can do. And I think he like set some kind of record. He doesn't know how to do a snatch. And if you watch him, it's like, that's not a snatch. You're just picking it up and putting it overhead.
Yeah.
But because he's so damn strong, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You can get away with a lot when you're really, really strong. So if you have a big ass engine and the timing belt's working well and the tires are all straight, like, you can kind of do whatever you want. I've done a lot of in my gym. I've got a couple of guys in my gym that call them stupid human tricks. I've done my fair share of stupid human tricks.
Yeah.
But I didn't train for them specifically.
Yeah.
I did the meat and potatoes, simple training. And then you find that simplicity led to the ability to do complicated things. Coming back to the days that I taught music, when we're teaching, very complicated parts on the drums, you break down little pieces. You don't play the part. You play the part as a test, and then you kind of have it. Right. But if you have all of these other skills, if you practiced your rudiments, if you can play those rudiments at these tempos with this technique, then you go learn a new part and it's like, it takes you 10 seconds.
Yeah.
I learned a song for my fiance. She really liked this. There was like a drum solo in this, I think it was Machine Gun Kelly song. And so I learned it for her.
Yeah.
And the reason that I can do that isn't because I practiced that solo, which makes you okay, but you'll find that you're not as good at that solo if you practice only that solo. It's because of the decades of the practice with all of these other things. It gives you a wider vocabulary.
Yeah.
And you can think of it like language. You can think of it like vocabulary. The wider the larger your vocabulary, the easier it is to communicate. There was an interesting study. I think it was kids. They were going to see like what's more effective, in terms of training the brain for accuracy. So it's like horseshoes, right? So one group threw to 10 feet, which was the test depth was 10 feet. And the other group was, they didn't practice 10 feet. They practiced 5 and 15. It was something like that. I'm probably getting the numbers wrong, but you get the concept. One group practiced only what the test was. The other group practiced everything else, but not what the test was. They developed a wider range of control. If you've only got control here because you've only spent time here, and I ask you here, or you end up here in competition because forces outside of your control pushed you there, you're kind of sunk. But if you train here and here, this is really easy.
Yeah.
The kids who did the variable rate, the variable distances, they significantly outperformed the kids who only did the one distance. And that's where people start talking about like, oh, well then, muscle confusion is important. Like, no. Don't misunderstand what that means. Your biggest variable is load. So we're still going to bench press. But today you'll do 175 and tomorrow you'll do 205. And the next, that's an undulating cycle. Don't do that. You would actually do 175, 177 because you're smart in using fractional plates, 180. But you would train a variety of rep ranges, which rep ranges are really just there to tell you how heavy to go. I'm ranting again. I apologize.
Pull it back in.
Pull it back in. So for the burpee, I'd get really good at squats. I'd get really good at push-ups. And I'd get those two alone will get you really good at burpees. Sorry.
You're good. The one, you might reprimand me for this one.
No.
But the one that I typically stay away from is barbell squats. I do other forms of squats, but something about barbell squat,
yeah.
I don't love it.
I don't think most people should use a barbell.
Really?
I wholeheartedly agree with you. Like, no, most people probably shouldn't use a barbell. I have some people in my gym, like when they reach a certain metric, like, again, we're very systems based. If you have never squatted before, we're just going to see if you can if you can just do a body weight squat.
Yeah.
And we have standards for depth. You have targets to hit. So let me see if you can consistently hit this depth target and stand back up. Okay, great. Let's load it. We're going to start with the goblet squat because it tends to clean things up and clean up the pattern. Are we training legs? We could do more effective things to make the legs stronger. Like if we're bodybuilding, a leg press will make your legs look prettier probably sooner, but you'll find that if you get really good at the goblet squat, that leg press now works better, and you'll find that you probably get similar results from a safety bar squat. So we kind of have this system, like, can you do an assisted squat, body weight squat, a reaching squat, so a counterweight, okay, goblet squat, 2 kettlebell rack squat, safety bar squat. Do you want to learn how to use a straight bar? Do you want to learn front squats? Front squats clean up a lot of problems in the back squat. So when you shift, you'll find you're really good at them. Again, like I think I have 3 people back squatting, and I have like somewhere around 70 people in there right now. So like, I'm with you.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right, we have time for one more card. Oh. This is supposed to be your pool. Do you journal, and why or why not?
I love the idea of the smile journal. So oftentimes we can patterns and repetition. If all I'm journaling is the things that pissed me off today, I'm going to get really good at finding things that piss me off. It's called the Tetris effect. That's based on a study that I won't go into, but it's cool.
Yeah.
But if I'm journaling things, specific parts of the day that made me smile, for instance, laughing at the butt tongue. Okay. That's a very specific thing.
Yeah.
I write down the story in my journal of what happened and why it made me smile. I do 3 of those a day, and I continue that. You're rewiring your brain to look for not just things that made you smile, but opportunities. The most successful people you talk to will almost always universally say, I was just lucky. But the reality is they were primed to spot the opportunities. Not that we all have the same number of them, but we all have some. And the number of opportunities that we miss when we're constantly looking for things to complain about or things to be angry about, or whatever trauma made me this way. Not that that's not relevant, but if you stay there, you're missing it. Like, okay, you know why? That doesn't tell you what to do next. You know, I've had a lot of rehab clients, and well, I know why your knee is like it is. That doesn't tell us what to do. The mystery's in the history. It explains it. And that's where we can start. But now you have to think solutions focused. If you woke up tomorrow and everything was better, what would be different here? Not what would be different out there.
Yeah.
What would have made it different? So this came from Sean Aker. He's a happiness researcher out of Harvard. And it's probably my own twist on his exercise because it's been so long since I read his work that this is just what I remember doing. And it absolutely did change my life. And it's absolutely why I am where I am. But 3 separate smiles every day has to be specific, can't repeat. You can't say, my dog made me smile. Well, what did your dog do? Did he make a butt tongue? Write that down. Yeah. Okay, you can't write that tomorrow. Yeah. Something, even on your worst days, you know, you still smile. When my dad was dying of cancer, there were parts of the day that still like, yeah, we had little laughs, you know? So you write those down. And you'll find it's really funny. Like if I ask you right now to write down 3 things yesterday that pissed you off, like, oh yeah. Yeah. But 3 things that made you smile, suddenly you have to work, you know? And that's part like just evolutionary. Like we're wired that way because that's what kept us alive. You know, we spotted the saber-tooth tiger. There's no tiger there. We're kind of in, despite appearances, the best part of human history right now. Yeah. And so we have to kind of rewire ourselves to make the most out of that. You know, I have opportunities that my ancestors certainly didn't have.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean it's easy or perfect, but if I can wire myself to spot things as they happen, I can take advantage of them. Not in like the, oh, I'm going to take advantage, but in the like, hey,
appreciation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, this is actually an opportunity, and here's why. If I turn the prism so the light shines through a different way and I've got a different picture, you know, your visual filter sees the situation differently and you suddenly have different solutions.
Yeah.
Versus different ways to complain.
What a lovely way to journal.
Yeah. It's like, you know, I did struggle with depression.
Yeah.
And I had panic disorder, had emphasis on past tense, like panic attacks very regularly, you know, and this was 15 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I feel like I'm in a pretty good place now. Not that I don't have my days.
Yeah.
You know, I'm still human and there are still genetic predispositions, but like I said, the things you practice are the things, you know, if I say nothing else, this is like the one thing, this is like become my life motto, is the pixels make the picture. The little things are the big things. Mm-hmm. So everything I do, I want to bias toward wiring myself to be a more effective, better human. Mm-hmm. You know, it's like etching. If I were to, you know, as a kid, you scratch your initials like, you know, B loves L, whatever.
Yeah.
If you miss, you've got a permanent little etch. Mm-hmm. And now it's harder to get that next groove in. Everything you do is another etch. Every rep, every journal entry, everything you say internally, it's all another etch in the table. So why would I not want to make the most out of that opportunity?
Yeah.
And practice things that rewire my brain. It's not a fixed, closed system. Mm-hmm. It's a biological, changing one.
Beautiful. I'm going to ask you 4 questions that I ask every single guest, and you are the only one answering them this time.
All right.
So what is your current biggest struggle?
I have plenty to choose from. You know, I have a lot to be grateful for. Mm-hmm. But there's always something, right? I think current is mostly logistical. My grandfather is kind of, he just got on hospice. Mm-hmm. So that is a big struggle. And then also he's about to be 15-year-old son. And so there's always logistical, like we have split shared custody. So mm-hmm. like he spends a month with her and a month with me. Always logistical issues with that. But I mean, really, like things are good. Mm-hmm. Honestly, like if I look at everything, like things are going really well. There's always something, but like I said, I can wire myself to think about big struggles, or I really don't have any big ones. I mean, watching my grandfather go that's really hard. So I guess it's that.
Yeah.
That.
Yeah. Okay. What is something you have done that you're really proud of?
You know, it's cliche, but like I'm really proud of my son. He's a genuinely good person. I'm really proud of my gym because I've worked really hard to build systems that are effective. And right now it's running and I'm not there.
Yeah.
And it's fine. Honestly, I think the coaches I have in place are better suited to that than I am, you know, and that's a huge success. My definition of success in the gym is I'm the worst trainer on the floor and I can leave. And it will probably be better off without me because of the systems in place and the people running them. Mm-hmm. And not worst trainer for lack of trying by any stretch, but worst trainer because everyone else is so damn good. Mm-hmm. And honestly, like I feel very I try not to be proud because then something always will humble you.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think recognizing success when you've had it is important. And I feel like I'm very grateful.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm very grateful to have an awesome family, to have an awesome team at my gym, which is kind of, I mean, they're a family for me. I'm grateful to have to be able to play music. I'm grateful to be able to play with Transformers with my little stepdaughter. Like, I'm grateful for a lot of things.
Yeah.
I know you asked for like, what am I proud of? But I can't point to any one thing. I can just say there's a lot going well.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
Okay. My next question is, if you could give anybody honorable mention, who would you choose and why?
Ooh. Like, as in, this is applicable because it will help them, or like, this is just who I'm grateful to?
It can be anybody in any season of life, somebody that you just want to be like, okay, yeah, this person is honorable mention.
Well, yeah, it'd have to be Liz Adams, my fiance. Like, she's amazing. Honestly, what a support system she has provided for me. Like, it's very, it's unreal. You know, the gym wouldn't be where it is without her. I wouldn't be who I am without her. I wouldn't be able to do what I do without her support, and having someone there to have your back and like catch your blind spots. Cause I'm very aware of the places that I'm weak. Like, I have some glaring blind spots where I need someone to like, hey, tell me. Right. And she's good about that. She's really good about like jumping in where I've, you know, especially like if I'm running the gym, there are pieces there that I'm like, I forget or I don't think about. She's like, hey, this. Oh, great. All right. Build a system.
Yeah.
Right. Very, very good team there. So yeah, if I'm shouting out anybody, I'm shouting out her.
We love you, Liz.
Mucho.
Okay, my last question is, if you could give advice to anybody listening, what is the best piece of advice you could give?
Keep it simple. Pixels make the picture. Stay focused. Like, remember the etching pattern. The pixels do make the picture. Every thought you have, everything you say, whether it's to someone else or yourself, whether it's verbal or mental, every little thing is another pixel in your life picture. And you know, if I pick up my phone and I look and there's like a dead pixel there, like, it doesn't have a huge impact. There are a lot of pixels on that screen. If there are 20, it starts to have an effect. When you add up 10,000, you have a different picture. And life is very much the same way. You think thousands of thoughts a day. Pay attention to them. Change them if need be. That doesn't mean like, don't think this. Because if I say, you know, to a weight loss client, don't eat cheeseburgers, the first thing in your head is cheeseburgers. But if I say, when you think of a cheeseburger, counter it with, but I want lower blood pressure. I want better health. I want to be able to play with my grandkids. You know, I want to not have back pain. You know, let me rephrase that. I want my back to feel good and strong. See, little things, even that, like I slipped there. Attention to detail goes a long way. Spot patterns, you know, and always look for nuance.
Yeah. Beautiful. All right. Where can people find you?
Generally at the gym. You know, I'm there very frequently. Obviously, Facebook and Instagram. Training from the Ground Up at Instagram, and I think it's TFGU 2.0 or Training from the Ground Up 2.0 on Facebook. But if you just search Training from the Ground Up, you'll find us. If you're looking for me personally, I'm also on there. I'm not exactly hiding. I think that's it. Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to add before we wrap things up?
Thank you for having me on. This is fun, and I like doing this.
Yeah. Well, we'll probably have you back.
Cool.
All right, you guys, we are going to wrap up this episode. Like I mentioned in the last episode, if you guys will subscribe to our YouTube and our Spotify, that helps us out tremendously. You can also find us over on Instagram and Apple Podcast. Also, downloading those episodes does great for our numbers. So go out there and do something kind today and have a beautiful day, friends. Bye. A huge thanks to Maximus Nutrition in San Angelo, Texas for sponsoring this episode. Make sure you hop over there if you are looking to fill your performance game. They can help you with supplements, shakes, proteins, you name it. They have it and they are ready to answer your questions. So If you're looking to step up that game, Maximus Nutrition is your spot to shop.